So let's do some talking today about annotation. What is annotation? Well, it's taking notes on a piece of text, making observations on what you see inside that text, having a conversation with the selection and the author. It's a way to stimulate critical thinking when you're interacting with the text. So annotation is a critical part of the reading process. It can take your normal reading skills and supersize them. So even though there are lots of reasons why we might annotate, there are three that I think are most important. The first and most important reason why I annotate is to remember. I really hate it when I get to the very end of a page and I don't remember anything that I read. Going through and annotating stops that from happening nearly as often. Another reason why I like to annotate is because it helps me to notice things. Items that I might notice when I'm reading, just putting my eyes over the page, when I slow down and actually write it down on the page, it really helps me to see them and notice them in a different way. And the third reason why I like to annotate is because it gives me an opportunity to ask questions. I know that I'm not going to get a chance to ask the author, and when you're testing, you're not going to get a chance to ask the teacher. But simply by writing those questions down, it gives me more of an opportunity to really think about what those questions are and maybe come up with some answers on my own. And so to recap, my three reasons are to remember, to notice, and to ask questions. So I'm just going to do a quick read through of the first 4 paragraphs of this piece. I should have suspected something. The other guys whooped and dribbled around me, slapping balls out of each other's hands and charging in for layups at both ends of the court. Layups that mostly bounced wide of the basket. For somebody like me, growing up in a basketball-loving family in a basketball-crazed town, you'd think I'd be screeching around the gym too. You'd think I'd be rebounding every shot and sinking 3-pointers from the lobby. You'd think. So let's stop there and take a look at what's going on in this piece. So let's take a look at this piece called Airball, My Life in Briefs, and see if we can do a little work on annotation and see what would actually happen with this piece. The first thing that I notice is this word airball from the title, Airball, My Life in Briefs. I mean, an airball is an absolute complete miss. So I wonder why the author would name this piece Airball, My Life in Briefs. I'm wondering if it has something to do with basketball. So that's one of the questions that I might ask. Something that I might notice is that we have layups that mostly bounced wide of the basket. So something that I might notice is that these guys don't sound like they're really all that good at this game. Another thing that I notice is that he says, you'd think I'd be rebounding every shot and sinking 3-pointers from the lobby. But as I stop and think about it, I remember this area up at the top here where they say that the layups are mostly bounced wide of the basket. And I'm thinking, but the other kids aren't even that good. So why is he holding himself to such a high standard? That's a really good question, and one that I might find the answers to as I keep reading. I also like this word right here, screeching. I think that's a really cool word, but it's not what I would think about when I think about what goes on in a basketball gym. I think of a basketball gym as being disciplined, maybe a little squeaking going on from tennis shoes, but not people screeching around the gym. I don't want to bore you too much, but that's just some of the things that I think about when I look at just those first 4 paragraphs. So here's what just some of my annotations look like as I go through that page. I also noticed the word shadow. That's kind of a dark image that happens. Clutching a basketball against my chest. This is what people do when they're nervous. I like the alliteration of the wild wind that whipped through the windows. The very air felt like change. I felt like anything could happen. That seems like it's kind of important when we're talking about a character inside a story like the one that we're looking at here. These are not all of the notations that you could do, but this is a few of them, and you wouldn't have to do all of these. but these are ways that you would be able to have a conversation with the piece. So, the question that you may have is, can't I do all of those things without annotating? The honest answer to that question is, absolutely, you can. The problem is that you can't do them as well. Annotation gives you the tools and the memory to go through and do everything and make sure that you have control of all of the stuff that you're trying to remember. Annotation is a very important tool, and you should use it every time you're trying to read for meaning. Annotation really is a critical part of the reading process. It's the way that we go from being good to being great. So make sure that when you're doing your annotations that you're really putting the time and effort into doing them. It'll really pay off in your understanding of whatever it is you happen to be reading.